Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the biggest storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Friday, January 17th, day 6 of the 2024 Australian Open, now officially in the books. This was a doozy of a day of tennis. More fun action, in my opinion, on the women's side than men's, but across the board, it was the level of tennis I think we all demand from round 3 of a major championship, and certainly with so many of the best players in the world seemingly rounding into their top form, it just feels like week 2 of this 2025 Australian Open is going to deliver, of course. Cannot wait to cover all of that action in the future. In the meantime, here today, of course, I want to recap everything we saw unfold across day 6's schedule. Of course, on the women's side, you had multiple seed-on-seed matchups for the first time in this tournament, and just about all of them delivered. Whether it was my favorite match of the day, I thought the highest level across the board, start to finish, Donna Vekic versus Diana Schneider. These two brought out the absolute best in one another, and truth be told, I'm not sure I've ever seen Vekic play a better start-to-finish match, and it's indicative of the growth we've seen from her certainly over the last 7 months, but for her to get over the finish line against the relentless pressure, the relentless athleticism on display of Diana Schneider, a particularly impressive performance from Vekic. So obviously I want to talk about her in our matches of the day section. I want to break down our other seed-on-seed 3-set battle, Paula Badosa versus Marta Kostyuk. Again, oh my goodness, was that an absolute battle? And I think you could make a case that Kostyuk was the better player from start to finish, and yet Badosa was better in the bigger moments. She had more certainty in the things she could turn to when put under pressure. Still, really fun match. Again, a couple of seed-on-seed battles on the women's side. Certainly my matches on the day. For the men, how can you not point to the two matches that went the distance? It was a relatively calm day on the men's side. Seeds like Alcaraz, Djokovic, Zverev all cruising to straight-set victories, but again, Jack Draper once again pushed the distance. There was another 5-set victory on an away turf, I suppose, playing an Australian at this Australian Open. 5 sets over Alex Vukic. I don't know how Draper won that 4th set breaker. It felt like Vukic threw the absolute kitchen sink at him, had all the bounces breaking his way, and yet once again, another 5-set victory for Draper. I think he's just the 3rd man ever to earn 3 5-set victories to start one of these major championships, earn his way to round number 4. So there's certainly that. And then Alejandro Davidovich-Fokina. He does this once every 6 months. Just a stark reminder of the talent he possesses now. The fact that that talent manifests itself, so infrequently, that's a storyline in itself. But, 5 sets, survives a war against Jakub Menchik, and to have that performance on the back of what he did against Felix Auger-Aliassime from 2 sets to love down. Again, back-to-back 2 sets to love down victories for Davidovich-Fokina. I want to spend some time talking about his win, and then, of course, we'll get into the upsets. Really only one. I don't know if you can ever count a seed-on-seed battle a true upset, but unless it's like a 1 versus a 28, etc. But you certainly had a top 10 seed knocked out, a tier 2 contender on my list. Jessica Pegula knocked out in straight sets at night by Olga Danilovic. Of course, you had players like Goff. You had Sabalenka pushed, ultimately prevailing. We got a lot of tennis to discuss as we recap day 6 action, and of course we will get to previewing day 7, the second half of round 3 at the end of this podcast as well. We'll run you through how the Americans did, the players with college ties, the players 21 and under, etc. As always, a comprehensive recap of everything you might have missed across day 6's action at the Australian Open. I do want to remind all of you here at the top, some of you may be tuning in live. We are on YouTube, and we are going to be trying to record these shows live as frequently as possible the rest of the way here through this Australian Open, and certainly be live on YouTube more frequently throughout the course of this 2025 season. The reason for that, again, to provide another platform for all of you to follow this content and try to continue our to grow our audience with those who consume tennis most frequently on YouTube. The other reason, of course, I want to be able to interact with all of you who do tune in. I want to hear your questions. I want to be able to respond to them actively throughout these shows. Continue to build that relationship, the one we hold, of course, most dear here at Cracked Racquets, that relationship with all of you tennis fans, as again, we look forward to continuing to try in our mission to make you the most well-informed, best educated tennis fans in the business. As always, by the way, we got a busy times ahead. Cracked Interviews podcast rocking and rolling as we try to get ready for the start of a new college tennis season. We're going to have kickoff weekend, the ceremonial start to each college dual match year here next weekend on our YouTube channel. We'll be previewing it all week long on the Great Shot podcast feed next week as we get rocking and rolling. So again, make sure you're subscribed not only here on the Cracked Racquets YouTube channel, but to the podcast feeds, the Mini Break podcast feed, Great Shot podcast feed, Cracked Interviews podcast feed. You can follow us daily, of course, at Cracked Racquets, at AL Gruskin on various social media platforms. As always, appreciate all of you who do that. We look forward to continuing to provide you updates on everything happening across levels in the tennis world. With that said, enough of a preamble. Let's get into the details. Let's break down what was such a fantastic Day 6 of the 2025 Australian Open. And the best part about Day 6 was it got off with a bang. And certainly with where we left things on day number 5 to go to, from a 10 a.m. finish here in Eastern time, 10:30, whatever it was between Medvedev Tien, to have that sort of drama to end the day, and then to just be thrown right back into the wolves with, again, Vekic Schneider going the distance right away, Badosa Kostyuk going the distance right away. I failed to mention this in the intro. Mira Andreeva, Magdalena Frech going the distance right away. Sabalenka and Tauson pushing one another right away. It was a hot start to Day 6, and certainly, again, as we narrow the breadth of the schedule moving forward, picking the matches of the day going to be a more narrow category as well. I have to go with Vekic Schneider as my match of the day, a 7-6, 6-7, 7-5 victory for Donna Vekic. The biggest thing for Vekic in this match is there were moments where, not moments, I would argue through the course of this match, you were playing on Diana Schneider's terms. Schneider was working Vekic side to side, and the most impressive thing I saw from the 18th seeded and currently world number 19 Croatian was the movement, was the ability to extend points, the ability to extend rallies, the ability to play a majority of 9+ rally shots, 9+ shots per point per rally, and just, again, what she was able to do in those corners. She wasn't just getting there and extending points with the slice and being thrown into the torture chamber of Diana Schneider. No, she had plenty of pace on her own to dish right back. I don't think I have ever seen Donna Vekic hit the forehand cross as high and heavy with this much success, this much consistency ever before in her career. I mean, the backhand has always held up, and when it's in the hip pocket, her ability to drive that ball line and hit through a court, that's never in question. But the ability to sustain that 75% rally ball that would keep her at no worse in neutral gear throughout the course of this match, it was remarkably impressive. Now, again, on top of that, when Vekic did have her opportunities to attack, she always took advantage of it, and it felt like, in particular, playing high and heavy, there were times when she was able to get that ball on the Schneider backhand shoulder, and Schneider would leave that ball short. Vekic immediately inside the baseline, hit the inside-out forehand so well. Again, hit the backhand line so well. Forehand cross, I've never seen her pull it, as I mentioned, with the success that she did. She won 74% of her first serve points, making 60% of her first serves along the way. 44 winners in the course of this match. Look, there were a healthy amount of breaks. I think 11 in total, 6 for Vekic, 5 for Schneider. Schneider had her chances. This was a 50-50 match, and truth be told, Diana Schneider should have won the first set when she hit that magnificent passing shot to take a 4-2 lead in the tiebreak. I thought for sure that Schneider's got this set after being up a break right out of the gates, after being up a break for the majority of that opening set. Again, it felt like she was the one, with how these rallies were being extended, she was the one more comfortable going corner to corner. She was the one finding the depth, the way she's able to draw the ball and really pull it off the court when she's attempting to hit cross court through the court, the way she's able to flatten line, the way she's able to just extend these rallies, and if you don't definitively put away the volley, she's coming up with another pass that's going to be difficult to deal with. Schneider was doing all of those things through set number one. And again, when she executes a beautiful line pass for the 4-2 mini break lead in that opening set breaker, I thought, okay, this is where the dam breaks. This is where Vekic, who has fought well, has played well, this is where she succumbs to this pressure. This is where she won't be able to sustain. Not the case. You could add the pace behind the first serve as well. That feels improved, I guess is the word I will go with here for Donna Vekic to start this season. And again, Vekic had not played well coming into this Australian Open results-wise. She had lost 4 straight overall entering this tournament. She had lost 3 matches she had played, albeit to 3 very informed players in Goff, Putentseva, and Fernandez, although, again, all those losses were in straight sets. There were no signs of this gear to Donna Vekic in the first 2 weeks of the season. And, again, how she's worked her way into this tournament, I thought she played really disciplined tennis, not afraid to go into the Dion Perry forehand in round number 1, to take Harriet Dart's best punch and then pull away so soundly in sets 2 and 3. It speaks to, you get a win like that, like she did in round number 2, what it does for your confidence. She was able to swing freely, play freely, move freely. It was elite tennis off the racket of Donna Vekic. And look, as well as Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova played in round 3, and she was exceptional. She blew Laura Siegemund off the court. All the offense, all the trickery, the drop shots Siegemund was able to employ to break the rhythm of Qin Wen, it just didn't work. Serve was coming in too hard, too consistently. The pace, even when Siegemund tried to attack down the center, you can't do that against Pavlyuchenkova. She doesn't have that extreme forehand grip, the hitch in the backswing that Qin Wen possesses. No, Pavlyuchenkova is able to swing through anything. I guess there's your Pavlyuchenkova breakdown, but that is an ideal draw for Donna Vekic in round 4. You're not playing Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, Goff. You're playing someone in their mid-30s who, yes, is playing well, but you feel like if you can move the way that she did in this past match, if she can swing as freely as she did when having the opportunity to take advantage of the short ball, I don't think Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova will play with the sort of physicality, will extend rallies the way that, into the outer third, the way that Schneider did. I think it's going to be more pace down the center of the court, and with how well Vekic is swinging, I think she is well equipped for that sort of matchup. Donna Vekic played awesome tennis. And again, to win that first set 7-6, to see Schneider, I think she served for the second set, got broken. Did she serve for the second set? I can look this up here quickly. I apologize to those on the YouTube screen who are going to see, I suppose, my right cheek here for a little bit. But looking at the flow of this match for Diana Schneider and Donna Vekic in set number 2. Schneider did not serve for the set. It was Vekic 5-4. Schneider held, 4-5 all at love. No, she did serve for the set. Yeah, that's what it was. She served for the set up 6-5. Good memory, Alex. Does still work. She gets broken in that game, gets broken at love in that service game. And again, it felt like the flip of momentum. It felt like, much as it did going through 4-2 in that first set breaker, all right, now that Schneider wasn't able to take advantage of the opportunity, surely this is where, again, still just 20 years old, this is where Diana Schneider falls a bit short. Not the case. She pulls through that breaker. And again, it just speaks to how well Diana Schneider competes. More than anything, I'm just so certain that we will get the best out of her throughout her career, that she will find a way to maximize, that she will find a way to do all of these things. Obviously, look, for Diana Schneider, she was up 5-3 in that third set as well. She had her opportunity to serve for the match. She played well enough to win it. It's just, as did Donna Vekic. This was extraordinary tennis. Again, I didn't know Vekic had that ability to extend rallies the way she did throughout the course of this one. Certainly for Schneider, the backhand sat up a little bit more than she would like on this court. It felt like Vekic was able to take that ball early, short hop it, time it well, whenever she needed to be aggressive. You would have liked to see Schneider attack more definitively. The fact that we come out of this match and Diana Schneider overall goes 10 of 17 at the net, that number should have been higher. Like, whenever she did push forward, because there were plenty times when Vekic did get stretched and turned to slice. I've seen Schneider take that ball on the rise. I've seen Schneider take that ball out of the air, play the swinging volley so successfully. She has that skill set in her. Core positioning-wise, she was also very susceptible to the Vekic drop shot because she was playing so far behind the baseline, to give herself time to extend rallies. Because, look, if she gets her hands on the ball cleanly. She can always come up with the pace. She has that sort of strength. It was a court positioning decision that I think she will come to regret coming out of this match, is that had she taken a more aggressive posture perhaps in the biggest moments, which she did at times, and again, Vekic played well enough to disrupt those rhythms and change patterns and go line and extend rallies with pace, not just with slice. This was a fantastic match. Donna Vekic, again, 7-6, 6-7, 7-5. I thought across the board this was the most competitive and highest level we saw from start to finish anywhere. But I'll tell you what, again, it's really fun when seeds have the opportunity to face off against one another, because another seeded battle that goes 3 sets on the day. How about Paula Badosa? 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. She knocks off Marta Kostyuk. Kostyuk, so good out of the gates. So good out of the gates. And again, in set number 1, Kostyuk, I think, races out to a 2-love lead, was ultimately broken back, but then again, breaks again for 3-1 after a long Paula Badosa service game. It just felt like, given the windy conditions, ball was certainly swirling a little bit throughout the course of this one. Kostyuk was just more prepared, and I have never seen Kostyuk swing with the racket speed, swing with the venom, the aggression that she was playing with from behind the baseline and on the baseline throughout the course of her first 6 games. Like, Kostyuk was lights out to start this match. And it's a credit for Paula Badosa for finding a way to do enough behind her first serve, finding a way to redirect enough with the backhand line, knowing that, hey, that is the side. Yeah, when Kostyuk strikes it well, sometimes it's breathtaking, but Kostyuk's backswing gets a little bit big on that forehand side. And if you can play through that wing with pace, or more importantly, depth, she'll leave you something short. She'll leave you something to get back to neutral behind, or if not, take an aggressive posture in the rally. And it's a credit to Badosa for finding that early in set number 1. And, again, long Paula Badosa service game at 4-all in that opening set. Badosa able to pull through there, gets a loose service game from Marta Kostyuk, who, simply put, just lost confidence in her first serve too frequently, second serve, too frequently throughout the course of this match. And ultimately, I thought that was what did her in. Again, obviously, you look at the final total, 16 total double faults for her in this match. The most pronounced moment down a break, obviously, or love 3, I think, in that deciding set. She's down love 3. It was either 30-40 or out. She hits the underhand serve, which she follows up with a passing shot winner and ultimately holds in that game, and does build a little bit of momentum back in what was ultimately a 6-4, 4-6, 6-3 victory for Paula Badosa. But again, 16 double faults, 56% first serve percentage. She put herself at a deficit too frequently in the controllable parts of her service game, and because of that, that was how Paula Badosa was able to neutralize. That's how she was able to find offense and find aggressive postures from the baseline, because when things were otherwise neutral, again, I actually thought Marta Kostyuk was had more tools at her disposal throughout the course of this match, I thought she dictated the flow of rhythm as well, and where Badosa was moving side to side. And yes, Badosa was able to find the goods and redirect in those moments. But again, I thought it was Kostyuk dictating the flow of traffic. Kostyuk played well enough to win in this match behind everything other than the serve. Again, they were pretty even across the board. 2 more winners ultimately for Kostyuk, but 4 more unforced errors. And of course, it doesn't help that she had 16 double faults to Badosa's 3. Tricky conditions, but again, for a Paula Badosa who also, much like Donna Vekic, did not have the best lead-in to this Australian Open, losses to Avanesian and Kruger, albeit both in 3 sets in her 2 lead-up tournaments. She did pick up a win over Peyton Stearns, but again, another 3-set match there. For her to find herself back in the 4th round of this Australian Open with this result, she's back up to 11 now in the live rankings. This is indicative of the Paula Badosa we've seen now really since April, May of last season. And, again, that player looks like one of the 12 best players in the world, someone who should be in contention for a tour final spot, someone who should be in contention in a second week of a major. And certainly now for her, with the draw opening up, Pegula getting eliminated, she'll take on Olga Danilovic now in round number 4. It is an opportunity for Badosa to get back to a slam quarterfinal. And for those of you curious, when's the last time Paula Badosa made round 4 of a major, let alone a slam quarterfinal? For Paula Badosa, you'd have to go all the way back to last year's U.S. Open, where, of course, she not only reached the round of 16, but she was able to reach the quarterfinals as well. Now, it is worth noting she's only made 2 quarterfinals at the majors in her career. It's a big opportunity for her coming up. And, again, to maneuver through this match with Kostyuk, striking the ball as well as she was from the ground. Badosa struggling with the conditions early, that she stole that first set, persevered and got off to a quick start, took advantage of a sloppy Kostyuk start, obviously, to that third. It's credit to Paula Badosa, continues to work her way back towards the top of the game. Again, Badosa impressive in a 6-4, 4-6, 6-3 victory over 17th seeded Marta Kostyuk. And look, again, it was a bad serving performance. And we saw something similar like that last year in her loss to Coco Gauff in what was a choppy quarterfinal matchup. I'm holding my position for Marta Kostyuk. She belongs in the top 20 of the world. When she is at her best, how fluid she is as an athlete, how sound she is on the backhand wing, the ability to turn into that ball and flatten it out line. When she is timing things well from the forehand, she is also a comfortable volleyer as well. The serve was an issue, but it's still a controllable for a player in Kostyuk who, again, is still Marta Kostyuk right now, 22 years old? Yeah. I'm holding my position for Marta Kostyuk, sitting at 22 right now in the live rankings. She'll fall, obviously, given those quarterfinal points from last year, fall off her resume, but not too far. 22-ish in the world feels about right still for Paula Badosa. The rise back towards the top continues. 3-set victory for her over Marta Kostyuk to advance to round number 4. Those were certainly your matches of the day on the women's side. On the men's side, again, you can't really pick any of the top seeds. Do I think Novak Djokovic put together his best performance of the tournament? Yes. I think he had been planting the seeds of that in his first 2-round matches, where if you've watched enough Djokovic over the years, you know there are matches when he knows, all right, I got this one. And yes, I know he dropped the opening set to Nishesh, but it was very clear Novak was trying to work his way into each of those matches, was playing with his food a bit, but more than anything, using those first 2 matches as practice matches to get in shape for the later rounds of this tournament where some serious foes potentially await. All of that is to say, again, as well as he played in a straight set victory over a rising Tomas Machac, as sound as Tommy Paul was in sets 2 and 3, as firm as Zverev's straight set victory was over Fernley, as delightful as Alcaraz's diving volley in the third set was against Borges, I don't think any of the top seeds for the men have played qualify for this match of the day category here on day 6. I do think the obvious matches of the day are the ones that went the distance. And certainly let's start with a man who has earned now 3 consecutive 5-set victories to reach round number 4, just the 3rd man ever to do that at a major. It's 23-year-old Jack Draper. 6-4, 2-6, 5-7, 7-6, 7-6. He knocks off Alex Vukic. How he won that 4th set breaker. Not the 4th set in general, but that's where I want to start. Because, first of all, Vukic's ability to fight off the 2-set points, serving 5-6, 2-set points down, I think they were both at out, comes up with a great first serve on one of them, comes up with a magnificent stick volley where it clearly hit frame, but he had closed the net so hard, all he had to do was make contact with the ball and it was trickling over, and it did for Vukic to come up with that. Then at 1-all, he does it again in the tiebreak, this remarkable stick save forehand stretch volley, 4-2-1. Passing shot he hits at 3-all for 4-3, clips the net tape, goes over on the backhand cross pass, the backhand side that, of course, you have to attack because it's the flatter side, the stiffer side, but because Vukic knows that ball is going there, again, he's hit that passing shot a billion times in his career, executes it perfectly for 5-4, for 4-3. At the point to level things for 5-all on serve, again, excellent +1 aggression, open things up with an inside-out forehand and then a cross-court forehand. That, to Draper's credit, remarkable defense to track those balls down, extends the rally 2 extra shots. Draper throws up this sky lob to the heavens, again, and Vukic, while backpedaling, one of the most difficult shots to hit, the backpedaling overhead, hit that one with definitiveness and balance and not yank it long and yank it wide. Again, overhead work is something I feel like I preach about on this podcast so frequently. I feel like every player add an extra hour of overhead work into your practice routines each and every week because you're just having to hit that shot more and more definitively with the speed and precision of these athletes now in pro tennis. Vukic comes up and hits a sky overhead out, takes it out of the air while backpedaling and knocks it off the court perfectly inside out. Again, holds for 5-all. Now, credit to Draper, takes the next point 6-5. An excellent serve to grind his way through. He takes that tie break 7-5. To have those 3 breaks go against him, and to not find, and not to not quit after the volley again on 2-1, to not quit after the passing shot Vukic hits for 4-3 on serve, to not quit after that overhead at 5-all, not be like, you know what, maybe this just is his day, because with the winners that Vukic was ripping in the second set, with the winners that Vukic was ripping in the third set, heck, I know he dropped the fourth set, but to start it off, the tracking down of the Draper drop shot around the net post forehand line that he just, Vukic played his best tennis. Alex Vukic brought his absolute best to this 2025 Australian Open. Whatever he did in his offseason, that's the routine moving forward, because Vukic played exceptional tennis. Vukic played well enough to win this match, and certainly you look at the statistics in this one for Draper Vukic, for Alex Vukic overall in this match. 22 aces, 78% first serve win percentage. He ripped 81 winners. 81 winners in this match. A 29 of 44 execution rate moving forward. But again, 22 aces and still 81 winners. He played well enough to win this one. You look for Draper, 29 aces. That first serve continues to be the weapon that so perfectly complements the sneaky physical. That's not even sneaky anymore. Draper can make magic happen. Go look at the on-the-run forehand line pass he hit to earn the break against Vukic in set number one. The on-the-run forehand line he hit to clinch the set in set number one as well. I mean, again, Draper makes that magic happen so frequently. You all know my thoughts on his backhand, which, yeah, sat a little shorter than I expected today against Vukic in those night conditions in Australia, but he can extend through that ball line and mock up the power. He can extend through the ball, play heavy cross, as he did in that deciding set, 10-8 tiebreak victory. Where, again, by the way, in that deciding set, 10-8 tiebreak victory, after Draper had been up a break earlier in the third, Vukic able to get that break back fairly quickly. The crowd is on Vukic's side. It's a third consecutive five-set match. You just thought this would be the moment where Draper breaks mentally, maybe breaks physically. Not even breaks, but just blinks for a moment. And that didn't happen. And this was the highest level he had played, even compared to the Kokkinakis match, the round one match against Navone. I thought this was the highest level we got from Jack Draper, because Alex Vukic, again, 81 winners against 53 unforced errors in this match. And it wasn't like a 50 ace count. No, a lot of those winners were forehand winners from the ground. Draper played the drop shot a lot. Vukic was there. Vukic's backhand held up. If he gets a clean look at the forehand, Vukic is doing something special with it. It's one of those shots on a hard court where you're just in trouble with how heavy it is, how he can flatten it out, how he can pull it inside out or pull it cross. Vukic played his best tennis, and it was a high level of tennis. And yet Jack Draper had enough left in the tank, found enough first serves, found enough magic on the run, played enough drop shots to disrupt Vukic's rhythm, weathered the storm, and advances to round number 4. And you look for Jack Draper in his career. It's a third round of 16 appearance, third consecutive year. Obviously, he's made a second week at a major, U.S. Open the last 2 seasons. Now here in Australia, his second week outside of New York. It's exactly the start you're looking for if you're the 23-year-old. Is he playing his best tennis? No. But for a guy, he's getting closer. But for a guy who, again, has had so many issues physically so far through his career, it's been injury that's kept him from rising even quicker to the top 25 ranks than he has. Draper's up to a new career high 15 right now in the live rankings, deservedly so. He's made final 16 in each of the last 2 majors. I don't know how else to say you're one of the 16 best players in the world than that. Again, Jack Draper threw a remarkable performance for Alex Vukic, who's going to walk out of this tournament sitting back up at 66 in the live rankings, which is where the 28-year-old and former Illinois All-American belongs with the level he's playing. He might even be one of the 50 best hardcourt players in the world right now. But Jack Draper able to sustain, again, third player ever to win 3 5-set matches on their way to the round of 16. Draper through, sets up the blockbuster matchup we were all hoping for pre-tournament with third-seeded Carlos Alcaraz. Obviously, you would hope Draper had a little more left in the tank, particularly relative to Alcaraz, who I think enters. Yes, he dropped the set today, but still relatively fresh. They're going to get more opportunities to go up against one another. Hopefully those opportunities come in later stages of the majors as well. It's still a good litmus test for Draper. Hey, just so you know, this is what it takes. 3 5-set wins. Now you got to be right back up as you're going to play a Tier 1 guy, arguably the best player in the world right now. We'll see what Draper has left in the tank. He survives another 5-set victory for the 23-year-old Brit. One of 2 5-set matches, of course, we saw on the day for the men. The other coming courtesy of Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Fought off match point on his way to a 3-6, 4-6, 7-6, 6-4, 6-2. Again, a second consecutive match where Alejandro Davidovich overcomes a 2-sets-to-love deficit. It's worth pointing out Davidovich Fokina with this 5-set match. He now surpasses Thanasi Kokkinakis for the highest percentage of 5-set matches played at the majors for relative to your total major sample size of any player active in the men's game right now. It encapsulates Davidovich Fokina so perfectly, doesn't that stat? The fact that he's going to play with his food a little bit. That he has a lot of counters, but what's plan A for Davidovich Fokina? What's the thing he does that makes life simple for himself on court, that wins him points easily on court? He has all the shots, he has all the skills, he has all the counters available to him, but being the guy dictating the terms of engagement can get a little tougher for him. And look, again, like for Jakub Menchik, he was on script through the first 2 sets, 6-3, 6-4, and I don't believe he was broken in either of those first 2 sets either. You look for Menchik, made 72% of his first serves. Lost just 5 points on serve in set number 1. Not only not broken, didn't face a set point in that set. You look for him in set number 2, made 63% of his first serves, but, again, lost just 4 points on serve in that set, and once again, did not face a breakpoint chance. The issue for him was you could tell Menchik lost his legs, and that manifested itself in his first serve percentage. 47% in set 4, in set 3, 58% in set 4, 55% in set number 5. The legs weren't there, the juice wasn't there, the ability to play +1 just wasn't there as frequently, and excuse me for a moment. Apologies to the podcast listeners, that was first, so YouTube fans didn't hear me coughing. The problem for Davidovich Fokina, for Menchik, the legs weren't there for him to continue to execute with the +1 aggression that he did throughout the first 2 sets. Obviously, on the match point, he had it on serve. I believe it was at 7-6 in that first set breaker. Yeah, it was, because then he lost the next point, and Davidovich Fokina closed out that set on serve. He played a backhand chip instead of following it forward, instead of going aggressive down the line. He just did the passive thing in that moment, and Davidovich Fokina pounced and took that slice as an approach and became the aggressor from there in the point, and Menchik wasn't able to come up with what would have been a really difficult pass. He had that match point opportunity, and again, you could tell he was fighting his body at that point as well, but he blinked. He blinked in that moment, had the match point, it passed. He just did not have the legs underneath him to execute with the +1 aggression that he did, again, flawlessly in sets number 1 and 2. And without that table setter, again, if it's turning into a baseline game, if Davidovich Fokina is going to have time on his hands to get you stretched and time on his hands to get into his arsenal of tricks, just Menchik didn't have the counters down the home stretch. A reminder that he is still just 19 years old, but again, glass half full. He was up 2-0. The level was there for him to advance in this match, and there we go. Excuse me once again. He has the skill set is there. That is unequivocal for Jakub Menchik, and if the bet is on the 19-year-old who has the frame, and certainly as we saw in the Casper Ruud match, the ability to execute at a level that can make anyone uncomfortable, that when he is fresh, again, has the frame and the requisite athleticism, fluidity to compete at that level. This is a 19-year-old who just still needs, you got to continue to develop the body, get stronger, get fitter in these moments so those legs don't abandon you. There is no trading of the stock in Jakub Menchik despite this loss. If anything, it was just the most needed of victories for Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who, let's be clear, Davidovich Fokina hasn't won 3 matches consecutively at an event since all the way back in 2023. You have to go all the way back to the Canada Masters, where he made semifinals back in 2023, to find a tournament where he has won 3 matches consecutively since. That means he didn't do it once. Not once in 2024. Had to have this moment for Davidovich Fokina, who, by the way, entered this tournament 66 in the world. Now, in making the second week, he's back up to 59 in the world. Still work to be done for a guy who's been ranked as high as 21. And at 25 years old, he was one of my make-or-break guys last season just because I had seen 4 years of 500 tennis from him at a certain point. Yeah, I know what the highs look like. He just can't sustain them frequently enough. If you're going to change the script, really helps to have a building block like this as your first piece of the new season. So again, it's a credit to Davidovich Fokina. Ultimately through in 5 sets, took advantage of his opponent's condition, and again, just played sound, firm tennis. Didn't beat himself up down the home stretch. Didn't get over aggressive. Just made the right play. And so back-to-back 2 sets to love down victories for Davidovich Fokina. Sets up a very athletic round 4 date with Tommy Paul. I feel like they've played at the majors before. I'm going to look that up. Tommy Paul against Alejandro Davidovich Fokina for their careers. You look overall, Tommy Paul against Davidovich Fokina in their careers at the majors. Let's see. Overall, against Tommy Paul, he has played, I don't know why Tennis Abstract wants to do this to me right now. I want to see, has he played Tommy Paul at the majors? No, I had exclude Tommy Paul. I wanted the head-to-head. We're going to leave this all in. Has he played Tommy Paul at the majors? They've played 3 times in their career. Yeah, they've played twice at the majors. Okay, my brain does still work. 2023 U.S. Open, 4-set victory. And yes, this was the match I was thinking of. 2023 Australian Open was a 5-set victory for Tommy Paul on his way to that magical semifinal run. You put those 2 athletes on the court who can do a lot of things. Again, take away what their opponent wants to do best, but manufacture pace for themselves as well. Obviously, it's a tale of 2 different stories. 2 guys who had the talent but were inconsistent early in their careers. Tommy's found that consistency. Davidovich Fokina hasn't. And maybe their 2023 encounters both won by Tommy. In fact, they played 3 times in 2023, all on hard courts, all won by Tommy. Indicative of the shift in the narrative to where Tommy became the guy and Davidovich Fokina had to fight some consistency. It's an ultimate table-setting match. Yeah, I'm manufacturing some extra narrative here for all of you new YouTube fans tuning in. But Davidovich Fokina has given himself an opportunity, and ultimately that's all you can ask for. Again, 5-set victory for Davidovich Fokina. The matches that went the distance today: Racquets, Schneider, Badosa, Kostyuk, Draper, Vukic, Davidovich Fokina, Menchik. No, they didn't include the marquee seeds, the top contenders, but they featured exceptional tennis, and it's certainly that sort of performance, that sort of drama that makes these middle sandwiched rounds 3 and 4, so special when you get these seeds going head-to-head. Certainly you hope that this is the level we see sustained throughout the rest of the tournament, because I certainly thought Day 6's matches of the day delivered. You did have 2 upsets on the day, technically by seed. Obviously, Vekic's win the 18th seed over 12th-seeded Schneider. You also had just the traditional upset in Olga Danilovich's 7-6, 6-1 victory over Jessica Pegula. Now, Pegula, after the match, discussed how different the conditions were at night, how slower those conditions were, and she wasn't making an excuse. She was just stating as a matter of fact that, as such, she struggled to hit with pace through the court. You could see that very much manifest itself. It felt like all of the decisions tactically when Pegula would make the choice to pull backhand line, when Pegula would make the choice to open up with a forehand cross or open up with a forehand inside out, all of those choices seemed correct. They just weren't hitting through the court with the sting that you saw from Jessica Pegula certainly last fall in her magnificent run and during that North American hardcourt summer. It's also, by the way, a credit to Olga Danilovich, who from 3-all in the tiebreak played 4 of the best points you could expect to see from a player in that sort of moment. The inside-out forehand she ripped for 5-3, or maybe that was for 6-3. Excuse me, I think the inside-out forehand was for 6-3. Came up with a ridiculous pass, 4-5-3. And then the backhand line winner she ripped on set point as well. Like, to come up with those 3 winners, played a sound point at 3-all on serve as well, and had the physicality to match Pegula's extended rallies, had the physicality to dig out of corners. I thought because her forehand came in with a little more topspin, a little heavier, she was able to manufacture better pace through the court. I thought her backhand had a little bit more sting on it when she redirected line throughout the course of this match. I would also point out that while the scoreline was 7-6, 6-1, the first 4 games of that second set were extraordinarily competitive. And there were moments littered in where Pegula had opportunities, particularly that opening service game for Danilovich, to make a move and capitalize. But again, she just wasn't quite able to manufacture the pace that she needed. There was the long service games. I think it was 2 long service games, right? Or the long, Danilovich service game at 1-all in that second set, followed by, again, a little bit of a blink from Pegula in the immediate aftermath. Service game after that, Pegula gets just a slow start down to love 40. Definitely lost the thread down the home stretch, but again, those final 4 points from 3-all to 7-3 in that second set tiebreaker. Pegula was up 3-2, so I think she technically won 5 consecutive points, but those last 3 in particular, from 4-3 up to 7-3, that she ripped 3 winners consecutively, each of them at points on the court where they're like, Pegula had the point construct correct. Not much you can do in that moment with what Danilovic was able to come up with. Again, the backhand line on the set point at 6-3, perfect. +1 execution, or +1 and change from there, which again, for those of you new to the show, serve, then the first shot after, which is referred to as the +1 ball, which you try to be aggressive with and dictate with. Danilovic was the better player. She was able to execute with more decisiveness when moving forward, and obviously you look for Olga Danilovic. It is certainly a signature victory for a player who has quietly risen up the rankings now, the 23-year-old Serbian, up to number 41 now in the live rankings, and certainly you look for Danilovic in her career to this point. Overall top 10 wins for Danilovic entering this matchup in her career. Olga Danilovic, coming into this one, 3-3 now overall. Second top 10 win at a major. She actually beat Danielle Collins in 3-set last year. She's earned top 10 victories in 2 of the last 4 majors. You look for her now in terms of reaching a 4th round here at the majors, as she did. It's also her second 4th round appearance at the major in the last 4. She also reached the final 16 at Roland Garros. You make 2 second weeks in the last 4 majors, you belong in the top 50 of the rankings. You belong knocking on the door of being seeded at this upcoming Roland Garros, and certainly in making this rise, life's just easier. You're getting into the Indian Wells main draw. You're getting into Miami main draw when you're top 45 in the world. It's a massive moment for Olga Danilovic. Again, another signature victory for her picked up at a major. She's got the length. She's got the wingspan. She's got the weapons. It's time to start taking Olga Danilovic more seriously. And that's an unforced error by me. I feel like I have not done nearly enough on her over the years, given the age range she's been in, this rise. Unfamiliar with her game. That rarely happens here at this Mini Break podcast. It's not that I was unfamiliar and never seen her play, but I hadn't seen it at this level with this level of consistency. I wasn't aware of this clear trend that, hey, all signs are pointed up. Again, a signature victory for Danilovic as she provides the traditional upset that we saw, the only one really, of the day on day 6, because guess what? None of the men were upset on day number 6. Again, all the top seeds, Alcaraz, Djokovic, Zverev, Tommy Paul, Ugo Humbert, Yuri Lechechka. Humbert got pushed most of all these top seeds outside of Jack Draper, but they were all able to survive. Again, setting up what should be a really fun second week of matchups. Although we have seen, it is worth noting that maybe this was the calm in the storm after we've lost Medvedev, Ruud, Rublev, Dimitrov, and Tsitsipas already. But it was a calming of the storm, and it does set things up to get pretty exciting as we look towards week number 2. Again, no upsets on the men's side today. You did have Draper push the distance, Davidovich-Fokina push the distance, and again, Badosa and Vekic, each 3-set winners. You also had Mira Andreeva earning a second consecutive 3-set victory. It was a 6-2-1, 6-6-2 win over Magdalena Frech. You look for Andreeva into another second week of a major. As such, she continues her rise up the rankings. Andreeva back up to 15 now, which is her career high. It's a ridiculous spot for the 17-year-old to be in, and for her to double down on the physicality, double down on the I tried to get too aggressive to start set number 2, which she did after grinding through Magdalena Frech in what was a far more competitive 6-2 set than that scoreline would indicate, because just 50% of rallies, 8 shots or more. High and heavy, the theme of the day. Andreeva tried to get more aggressive, tried to play a more thoroughly attacking brand of tennis in set number 2. It wasn't working. She was pulling the forehand wide. The backhand just wasn't getting through Frech, who was able to find these easy redirect opportunities given Andreeva had compromised her court positioning in the pursuit of aggression. Andreeva said, fine, I won't do that anymore. I'll just outgrind you. I can do that too. And that's what she was able to do down the home stretch. Again, so physical with a little extra juice as well. The drop shot always worked in. Andreeva 6-2 in the third. She's able to knock out Frich and advance to another fourth round. Again, 15 in the world at 17 years old. Not too bad. 35 total 3-set matches through day 6 of this Australian Open. 27 5-set matches as, again, Draper, Davidovich, Fokina, each going the distance on the day. Outside of that, you look at the other women's results. Look, Sabalenka-Tauson probably should have been in my match of the day category. Clara Tauson served for the opening set. Clara Tauson was exceptional. And after this Australian Open concludes, and we do a podcast probably with David Kane, hopefully live here on YouTube, where we list our biggest winners of the opening month of the season, Clara Tauson's got to be top 5, regardless of where this Australian Open goes from here. Yeah, I know Coco Gauff's 8-0 again for the 3rd consecutive season. She's like the 4th player ever to do that. That's ridiculous. We'll get to her in a second. Tauson lost this match and, again, served for the opening set, and there were plenty of breaks in this one. In fact, you look overall, Tauson, Sabalenka, 2 players known for their power +1 tennis, combined 11 breaks in the course of this match. And it wasn't as though it was a double fault fest. It was just both players swinging so freely and aggressively on the return serve and just connecting perfectly. The biggest compliment I can offer Clara Tauson, her forehand passed the test with flying colors. And look, you all see the extreme grip that she has, that big loopy backswing. The racket speed she's able to generate, you're just not supposed to be able to do that in the face of Sabalenka's power, particularly when you have such an extreme grip. And Tauson was just able to manufacture whatever she needed. The forehand cross on the run. First of all, she moved extraordinarily well. Now, the issue was Sabalenka was just better. Sabalenka was the more dynamic athlete in the outer third. Sabalenka didn't have to turn to the slice and could do more things when facing down the barrel of the relentless aggression of Tauson. But when the forehand rallies were going cross-court, Tauson held up. Tauson did plenty of dictating in this one. And again, Tauson drops that serve for the opening set. Sabalenka is able to come back, take the first set breaker. Ultimately, what was it? 7-5. What was a tightly contested first set breaker. Sabalenka is then able to get an early break. And you think, okay, maybe this is where she runs away. Maybe Tauson can't sustain this level physically moving forward. Not the case. Tauson gets the break back for 4-all. Tauson had her chances in that 4-all service game as well. Sabalenka coming up with a ridiculous on-the-run forehand cross on that breakpoint chance after Tauson had her on the full stretch throughout the course of that rally. And again, that shot, that point right there, that's indicative of the difference between these two. That breakpoint 4-all that Sabalenka converts, a point where Tauson was the one doing the majority of the dictating, and yet Sabalenka is able to come up with on-the-run magic. That's the last gear Tauson lacks. But guess what? So does everyone else on tour. Like, that's why Sabalenka's tier 1 and who she is, a 4-time Grand Slam champion. But Tauson matched everything else. The ability to redirect those pulverizing cross-court exchanges with a backhand line or a forehand line, and how she opens up her shoulders to flatten up that forehand line with the grip that she possesses, while also being able, again, to whip that ball cross-court heavy, depth, pace behind it. Backhand has always been special. She has the length and strength to hold her ground on the return of serve. 7-1 overall in the month. I know she was down a set to Osaka when she got the retirement victory in that final in week 1, but 7-1, got the win over Noskova, a win over Keys, played as well as she did throughout this Australian Open. Again, had to play really well to beat Noskova, front foot, +1 tennis, blitzed a Tatiana Maria who didn't have weapons to hurt her off the court, and then for 2 hours, 6 minutes, went shot for shot with the world number 1, matched her pace, and again, showed a flexibility and a fluidity in the outer thirds. Was she moving exceptionally? No, but was doing enough with her strength to just keep pace with Sabalenka and find the opportunities to be the aggressor. This was an awesome match. Sabalenka got thoroughly pushed. And look, on the other side, for Sabalenka to be down 5-2 in the second set in her round 2 win, to be pushed like this from start to finish, again, have to break to extend that first set and ultimately break and hold to close out set number 2. She continues to be pushed in all the right ways while also still passing those tests. And, you know, you look for Sabalenka now, next up for her, she's going to take on Mira Andreeva. Like, the draw, It seemed, well, I think David Kane and I disagreed with this in our draw preview assessment. I thought Sabalenka's half was the tougher half. I thought her quarter was particularly tough as well. David Kane seemed to disagree in the sense he didn't think that there was a clear-cut threat to Sabalenka until a potential Coco Gauff in the semifinals. I think Clara Tauson proves that's not true, and that was my theory of the case. We'll see how Andreeva holds up after getting blitzed in their early season matchup in Brisbane. To have Vekic, Pavlyuchenkova playing as well as they are, that's the potential quarterfinal date. Again, both advantageous matchups for Sabalenka given how well she could get those two stretched where they don't want to be. But there are no cupcakes. There's no walkovers remaining for Aryna Sabalenka the rest of the way. And certainly you could argue that's the case for a lot of players given how well the seeds have held up thus far. I still think I'd rather be in the Swiatek position though, with Raducanu coming off of that Anisimova win in two very physical matches in her first two round three. The winner of Christian and Lise, the ideal round four matchup. If it's Kasatkina, Poots, Navarro, do either of those players have the weapons to really, even Jabeur, to hurt Swiatek the way you need to beat her? I think Swiatek's draw has opened up pretty well with a path to the semifinals until, of course, ultimately, look, if a Rybakina awaits you then it's as real as anything. But I do think Sabalenka moving forward, it's just a pathway to keep an eye on. It's all tests the rest of the way. And to her credit, she keeps passing those tests and keeps reminding us why she's the world number one. Sabalenka threw in straight sets, as was Coco Gauff. He was just too strong. When things were at neutral, Gauff was winning every time in her 6-4, 6-2 victory over Leylah Fernandez. It just took so much more for Fernandez to be able to attempt to manufacture the sort of pace necessary, the sort of aggression necessary to hit Gauff off her spots. And even when Gauff was just able to find defense into offense in a way Fernandez couldn't quite replicate. Gauff's serve was the biggest weapon on the court. I continue to say it. She gets faster and stronger every time I see her compete. It was a sound performance for Coco Gauff through 4-2 to set up the date with Belinda Bencic, who, of course, works her way back from an early breakdown, takes the opening set 7-6 over Naomi Osaka. You could tell, though, as the match progressed, Osaka dealing with an ab injury. She just could not serve the way that she needs to assert herself as she did against Karolina Muchova. And it's so disappointing because that Muchova match was the best we had seen Osaka play since the 2021 Australian Open. And it felt like between that, her week one run to the final, finally she had found the rhythm and the requisite confidence needed to really start putting a string of results together. Hopefully, this injury isn't too significant because certainly, again, Osaka's level is there for the first time. It's back for the first time in 4 years. I can say that confidently. That's what you saw in the Muchova match. Can't her body still hold up after, obviously, just not competing as frequently as fluently as she did throughout her opening stages of her career, the way we all do when we're younger. It's so disappointing because, again, the level was there for Osaka this tournament. But, man, credit to Belinda Bencic. Back in the hunt, back into the second week of a slam. Obviously, for her, she just had her first child as well. To be able to make a second week at a major this quickly. She's up 138 spots, back up to 156 in the world. You look for Belinda Bencic, who still just 27 years old. When was the last time she made the round of 16 at a major event? I'm glad you all asked. The last time she did so, according to our friends at Tennis Abstract, 2023 U.S. Open, where, by the way, 2023 she made the round of 16 in 3 of the year's 4 majors, losing in the round of 16 on each occasion. Obviously, the biggest test coming up next is she's going to face off against Coco Gauff, but it's a really nice win for Belinda Bencic as she advances to the round of 16. And then, as I mentioned, Pavs was awesome. Rocked Laura Siegemund. There was no time for Siegemund to be aggressive, push forward, because Pavlyuchenkova took that time away from her. Again, ultimately a straight set winner on the day. On the men's side, look, again, pretty good day for the seed. Zverev, 3-4-4. Yeah, Fernley broke back. I believe it was in the third set. Zverev was able to get the break back pretty quickly. Zverev lights out on serve. He somehow looks a little stronger, looks a little fitter for a guy who has always been in shape, always had the ability to play multiple 5-set matches. Now, the fact that he hasn't dropped the set yet. Look, this is a guy who's up 2-0 in the semifinals of this event last year against Medvedev and beat Alcaraz in this event last season, made the French Open final last season. Don't let the losses to Fritz at Wimbledon and the U.S. Open cloud. Sasha Zverev gets to second weeks at majors. That's what he does. This is where the issues start. Great tournament for Jake Fernley, who has consolidated his top 100 position and has a runway, a path to the top 50 with no points to defend till June, and the quality events he's going to get to play. Every win, it's just another 4 spots he'll jump up the rankings because it's free points. Still, again, Fernley had the forehand to hold, wasn't ready to deal with the pace of the Zverev serve and the pace of everything behind it as well. 3-4-4 win for Zverev. He has maneuvered comfortably to week number 2, as did Carlos Alcaraz relatively. Again, 6-2, 6-4, 6-7, 6-2 win over Nuno Borges. Kind of fell asleep at the wheel in set number 3, played with the food, more drop shots. The diving volley, remarkable. He made contact with the ball. I know he lost the point, but to retrieve an overhead, landed a diving volley in the same point. Carlos Alcaraz is just, he's showtime. He's must-watch television. He is someone every athlete, I think, can enjoy. But certainly, again, impressive stuff from Carlos Alcaraz is ultimately through in 4 sets. Nuno's playing as well as I've ever seen Nuno play, and I know last year he made it around further, but it's a good tournament for Nuno, who, after making semifinals a week ago, Nuno's going to leave despite the earlier exit, 34 in the world. He's got some points to defend, certainly in this first third with his back-to-back Phoenix titles, but yeah, it's a good result for Nuno still. You're feeling pretty comfortable if you're Carlos Alcaraz, and given the amount of tennis his 4th-round opponent Jack Draper has played, he is a significant favorite going into that matchup. Other seeds on the day, Djokovic, he's ready. This was the matchup where he turned it on. This is where the matchup where he said, no more playing with the food. Thomas Machac cannot hurt me through the backhand corner. I'm going to pulverize him through it, and I'm going to work my forehand around the court. I'm going to keep him on his win by yanking him wide cross so he can't cheat over and hit the inside-out forehand moving left, which he hit so well. It was just, it's what, if you've watched, I said this earlier in the podcast, so I apologize for repeating myself. If you've watched enough Djokovic over the years, you've seen the seedlings of this planted. This is what Djokovic does when he's getting ready to work his way into top gear. It plays with the food the first 2 rounds, but upon the first real test, he turns it on. And this was the first real test. He turned it on. He's moving well. He's fit. He's engaging the crowd. He did not play a single match. I know he made the semis still last year. Never once did he play as well as he did in this Machac match. During, I would argue, any major event. Not even Wimbledon did he play a match like this, I would argue, on his way to that final. Yeah, he played this well at the Olympics, but probably outside of that, this is the best Djokovic has played since. 1-4-4, definitive in a victory. Tommy was bad early, but ultimately Tommy Paul, your number 12 seed, dominant down the home stretch. 7-6, 6-2, 6-love, overcomes an early first set deficit. Tommy had played some aggressive players in his first 2 matches and thus hadn't had the opportunity to maybe swing as freely and had the time on his hands to dictate. He did against Carballes Baena. I forgot how good he has gotten at that gear, the ability to accelerate through the forehand. He's always so fluid and has the requisite touch you need. He's an elite volleyer, elite at the net, great with the overhead. 6-2 in love. He cruises into round number 4, where he'll be joined by a couple of other seeds. Ugo Humbert, Arthur Fils was the best first 2 sets you saw, maybe anywhere on the men's side, and outside of Draper Vukic. And yet, unfortunately for Arthur Fils, you could tell midway through set number 3, something was wrong physically, and unfortunately he has to stop the match after at the start of set number 4, Humbert ultimately advancing 4-6, 7-5, 6-4, 1-love, a retirement victory, as Arthur Fils telling Tennis Majors, the outlet, after the match, that he had a brace on his ankle as he had hurt his ankle against Quinton Halys the round before, and he could just tell as he was trying to stand up to start that 4th set and as he was trying to maneuver throughout the course of the 3rd, although I thought he was moving okay through the 3rd, although you could tell he was wincing. You could tell that there was some pain, that he just too much pain for him to go on. He's hoping it's just a quick, a nagging injury more than anything else. But again, the first 2 sets were extraordinary. The energy each of them play with. Ugo Humbert gets after it. Obviously, he was in a little late season conflict last year because of the energy he plays with. But him and Fils sharing the court, magnificent. Both of them were embracing that element of the game. It wasn't personal. It was, hey, let's get fired up. Let's get this crowd fired up. Let's try to engage them as well. The on-the-run winners. Ugo Humbert's insistence on serving so far wide on the outside to hit the cutter wide, but then he can also go flat tee if you try to cheat over too far. Feast is on the run forehand. He had plenty of time to hit it, although I did think he was jammed by Humbert. The return of serve as a shot in particular felt so important in this match for Feast, because when he was on a deficit behind his forehand, that's when Humbert is just swinging freely, and he'll kill you with his relentless pace when he has time. The level was extraordinarily high, though, because Feast was able to play with touch. Feast, up a set, down a break 5-40, breaks back for 5-all in that second set. Magic. Humbert gets the break back again for 6-5 and serves it out for 7-5, and we are in the match. It's a shame it wasn't able to finish. Feast's body didn't hold up still. I thought he played well at this slam. Humbert, though, quietly into a fourth round. Again, the quietest guy. The guy in the top 20 we probably spend the least amount of time discussing collectively. Hugo Humbert sitting at 14 in the world as the 26-year-old through to the second week, where a date for Humbert with Sasha Zverev. That's an interesting matchup because he certainly has the requisite aggression to make Zverev uncomfortable. That's a sneaky fun round 4 matchup for us to look forward to on day number 7. Again, Humbert through in 4. And then the quietest run, and he's had a couple of retirements, but Yuri Lechechka, straight sets, cruises. Does Lechechka to round number 4. Lechechka 2-3-3 win. Obviously, we've seen Lechechka in round 4 of this Australian Open in particular in the past, but you look for Yuri Lechechka now. 32-16 overall over his last 52 weeks of play. Lechechka now at the majors. He's reached the second week, at the majors now for, and I want to get this correct, round 4 at the majors for the third time in his career, first time since Wimbledon 2023. He's got Djokovic up next. It's the opportunity to pick up a signature victory. Again, he hasn't really been pushed in all of his victories here this year. And your reminder, Yuri Lechechka now to start the season has technically won, 6 consecutive matches? He won 5 in Brisbane, but the last 2 were by retirement. I mean, he's gotten 3 mid-match retirements. He's technically won his first 8 matches, though, of the season. Hot start for a guy who, by the way, still just 23 years old. Probably, again, another huge oversight in our prospects draft that we did with Gil Gross. Lechechka's the real deal. He is good. He has serious pace. How smooth he was in this straight set victory. He was never tested by Bonzi, who just couldn't do anything with anything elite enough to disrupt Lechechka's rhythm. Sneaky smooth performance from Yuri Lechechka again through to round 4 of a major for the third time in his career. With that said, again, that's everything from day 6 of this 2025 Australian Open. You look at how the Americans, college players, 21 unders performed. The American women overall in the day 1-1. Certainly a disappointment to have lost Jessica Pegula moving forward, particularly given how good she looked last week and through her first 2 matches. Coco Gauff looks great. Gauff 4-2 win. Again, she joins Navarro, Keys as the last 3 American women remaining. Of course, on the men's side, you only had 1 American in play. Tommy's the last of the American men. Now, you still have 5 Americans in play on the other side of the draw, but Tommy's the last on the bottom half, and he gets through. So, he won in straights. A- because he got off to the slow start, but was that good down the home stretch. Still, Fritz, Shelton, Mickelson, Garon, Tien, all in action tomorrow. The American women 14-15 overall. American men 18-8 overall through day 6. For the players with college ties, you lost one of the big 3 on the women's side. Schneider knocked out in 3, although the level was certainly there. Slightly disappointing given the opportunity she had available to her serving for that match, serving for the opening set. 6-8 overall of the college women through day 6 with Navarro, Collins in action tomorrow for the college men. 0-3 on the day, but Fernley lost to Zverev. Nuno lost to Alcaraz. Vukic lost 7-6 in the 5th to Draper. Other than Walton losing from 2 sets to Love up in round number 1 and probably Hijikata's straight set loss to Kruger, those are the only 2 questionable losses taken by the college men so far, who are 17-15 overall, and still have Shelton, Cerundolo, Garon, Tien all competing on day number 7. Of course, for the 21 and under crew, they lost one of the big 3, Andrieva Goff each advancing to week 2, but Diana Schneider, of course, knocked out on the women's side. And, for the men, Feast knocked out in round 3, Menchik knocked out in round 3. Still Mickelson, Lerner, Holger going to compete tomorrow. Obviously, Carlos Alcaraz, you forget he's still under 22, 21-year-old still alive, and of course into the second week of the major. That's where those groups stand as, of course, we head into our second half of round number 3. And for what it's worth, by the way, Jessica Pegula, the only top 10 in the Tennis Abstract forecast, eliminated on day number 6. What does day 7 have in store for us? That's the final question I want to answer here as we wrap today's show. And again, for those of you listening to the podcast, make sure you join us live on YouTube tomorrow. We'll try to do a better job of advertising when these shows are happening, but it's a loaded Women's Day. Loaded Women's Day of action. Up to, I would argue, you got 4 blockbusters. Swiatek versus Raducanu, with Raducanu playing as well as she has in wins over Alexandrova and Anisimova to date. Iga blitzing through round number 2. Again, another great litmus test, though, for how healthy she is to this point. It's 2 slam champions going head-to-head in round number 3. Sign me up for that. I'd lean Swiatek. I don't lean. Swiatek's winning the match. Navarro versus Jabeur. Navarro being pushed to 3 sets in each of her first 2. Ons looking pretty sound in her first 2 wins. Obviously, the trickery Ons plays with, the slice, and her ability to disrupt your rhythm. The problem is Navarro's got the requisite fitness. She's got the requisite skill set to have a counter to everything Jabeur throws at her. The question is, how fit is Navarro coming off of those 2 3-set wins? We'll find out. That's just going to be a physical, fun match. The All-American battle has to be a blockbuster. How this crowd handles Danielle Collins coming off of round 2. Fascinating. Of course, she'll take on big-hitting Madison Keys. It's an All-American showdown. How is that not one of your blockbusters? I'll go Swiatek. I'll go Navarro. I'll go Keys as well. Litmus test match for Jasmine Paolini, who's looked really comfortable through her first 2, but obviously she's going to take on an exceptional counterpuncher in Alina Svitolina. Also, what's Svitolina's level to start this season? I think that's an open question. Looking forward to seeing it answered. Certainly, again, I would argue those are 4 blockbuster matches. I'll go Swiatek, Navarro, Keys, and I'll take a dose of Svitolina, because why not pick an upset there in those 4 marquee matchups? You also got Kasatkina versus Poots. Poots has looked exceptional so far through this season. Kasatkina is the ultimate litmus test. Do you belong to be competing with the best in the world against the top 8? Because if you can't get through the Kasatkina test, you don't have the requisite weapons or consistency to do so. 3 hours, 3 sets written all over that one. And then power tennis at its finest. Look, it's the most ideal of draws for Elena Rybakina as well. Jovic, Emerson Jones, 2 teenagers who just weren't ready for her pace. Now she's going to face someone who has pace to match her in Diana Yastremska, who was excellent in round 2, but does the streaky Yastremska, can she find the consistency here? My bet would be no. It's about as ideal as it could be for Rybakina. If you're going to have to face a seed in round 3, give me the 32 seed, regardless of the name attached to it. But in this case, that's the volatile Yastremska ideal matchup for Rybakina. You've also got Haddad Maia versus Kudermetova 2 years ago. That would have probably been one of my blockbuster 4. Excellent opportunity for Kudermetova as she continues to try to build her way back. And then huge opportunity for Eva Lise, Jacqueline Christian, as each of them continue their climbs. You look for Lise actually in making the 3rd round here at this major. Eva Lise now currently sitting in the live rankings at number, it would help if I put Eva did it at 111, the 23-year-old 6 off her career high. You look for Christian. She's currently sitting at, and I apologize, I'm typing this in as we go, 61 in the live rankings, 4 off her career high. So massive opportunity for each. Again, 8 great matches. I'll give you my winners here. Swiatek, Navarro, Keys, Svitolina. I'm going to ride the Poots train. I think she is playing that well right now. Rybakina, I want to pick Haddad Maia, so because of that, I'm going Kudermetova, because I can never get a Haddad Maia run correctly. And maybe because of that, I should actually pick Haddad Maia, but I'll stick with Kudermetova, and I'll go Lise to get to round number 4 as well. Give me that 23-year-old German who has certainly played her best tennis over the last 6 months. On the men's side, got a bunch of good matches. I don't know if we have a blockbuster, but a lot of good matches. Fritz versus Monfils is a blockbuster. Monfils hasn't lost this year. He's 7-0 entering this match. All of those wins, of course, I don't actually know if he lost in week number 1, but obviously for Monfils to have won last week, and again, the win over Pesci Pericard, dominant in round 2. Fritz, though, has lost like 8 games to date so far. Monfils obviously has the speed, has the fluidity to throw some punches back at Taylor Fritz to make him uncomfortable and to take his biggest blows. I just think Taylor's playing too well right now. He's executing too soundly. I don't know if Monfils has enough to get him off script. Give me Fritz in that one. My favorite match of the day is Musetti versus Shelton on the men's side. Again, elite speed versus elite pace, 2 exceptional improvisers. Shelton's cut wide into the Musetti one-handed backhand. How far he'll get him stretched. We're just going to get opportunities to see so much Musetti magic. Musetti's gotten a lot better with his +1. He'll punish all those Ben returns that float short. But Musetti's penchant for allowing magic. Ben can match his magic. That match is just going to be magical. I'll take Shelton in 5. Mickelson versus Khachanov. Again, Mickelson to beat Tsitsipas, to serve as well as he has, the straight set win. It would be another opportunity for a signature victory here at this event. But death taxes Khachanov getting to second weeks. I'll take him to advance. Look, Francisco Cerundolo's a primetime performer. The better, he's a tennis chameleon. The better the opponent, the better the Cerundolo. The worse the opponent, the lower the stage, the less committed Cerundolo you get. This is the biggest stage you could offer against an Aussie in Melbourne for a second week spot on the line. I mean, not the biggest. You get what I'm saying. But Demon's been lights out. The eye test, he might be the biggest winner of the eye test in the opening month of the season. Give me Demon to advance. 4 sets in that one. Another great litmus test for Holger Rune after playing the power players in Zhengzhi Zhen. Matteo Berrettini gets the always physical Miomir Kecmanovic. Rune's been locked in. I'm going to take that trend to stay. Give me Rune. Give me Sinner over Giron. If Lerner has gas left in the tank, he'll beat Corentin Moutet. I'm not sure that he will. I think Moutet advances in 4 sets, but again, Lerner has an opportunity here to make a second week, certainly. And then Marozsan versus Sonego, a match that I don't know if any of us will have time to watch with everything else going on live, but Fabian Marozsan strikes the ball better than you think. Give me Marozsan to advance to round number 4 as well. That, folks, is your look at day number 7. Of course, hopefully we will be back tomorrow to recap all things day 6. And as always, appreciate all of you who take the time to tune in, day out. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to providing you more content, including next weekend, our first broadcast of the year on this channel. We've got the ITA kickoff weekend, all the best college tennis players and teams in the country competing for a spot at the National Indoor Championship. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button. If you're listening to the podcast, go subscribe to the Cracked Racquets YouTube channel today. A shout out, as always, to the tireless efforts of our super producer, Daniel Westhoff, for the fuck of an any job he does day in, day out, making all of our content possible. Again, it's not just this show. Great Shot podcast feed, Cracked Interviews podcast feed, rocking and rolling as well. With that said, for our fantastic super producer, Daniel Westhoff, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. That was day 6 of the 2025 Australian Open. Until tomorrow, you know what we say. That's the break, and we'll talk to you all then. Thanks, everyone.